continue our conversation on the vexed issue of retardance to economic and social growth by diving a little deeper into the discussion on corruption. In this evening's conversation, we ask our panelists to discuss strategies to combat corruption. We do so with Joseph Patterson, President of the United Independence Congress. We also welcome Community Outreach Officer of the National Integrity Action, the NIA, Gavin Myers, and the Youth Parliamentarian, Montel Hill. But before we get into it, the public has their say.
CM knife that stick sheep, stick the goat. CM prison term for Harry, CM for Mr. Tom. Level playing field. And when that started to happen, the bigger heads will take heed, just as the smaller heads.
Gentlemen, welcome. Thanks for joining us on CVM Live. Or the member of the public who spoke just now spoke about this, the belief, the persistent belief among Jamaicans that different laws apply for different people. That while some people are held accountable and held accountable in multiple ways for breaching the laws and processes of the country, there are others who do all kinds of things that are inappropriate and wrong, but they are never held accountable. That's how Jamaicans typically feel. I remember the story of somebody being arrested and charged for picking ackee from an ackee tree. So I suppose we should start there. The feeling, Gavin, that there are two laws for two sets of Jamaicans and that it doesn't apply in the same way to everybody, and that perhaps an important determinant of this is who has access to power and money. How do you, as the integrity specialist on the panel, how do you help us to frame that understanding of perhaps what is wrong with our idea of living in a fair and just society?
Good evening, Nadine. Good evening, Pat. Welcome. Thank you for that question. We have to look at it in two ways. One, we have to acknowledge that our system and our laws say that all are equal under it. And this is really good. We believe that, we know that as Jamaicans, we know that we are all equal. However, there's this consistent thing. The Latin American public opinion polls say that. The Don Anderson polls say that. Other polls have said that Jamaicans do feel like there are two rules and that these rules work for one set of persons who are of a lower socioeconomic space, and it doesn't work for some who are in power. And one of the things that is important is that us as public, as citizens, have to demand that the laws work for all. That some persons do not feel that they are above the law or that our resources are theirs. People have to know that our resources should be shared or utilized for us. And this will equal and make for a better development that we all feel. Not just growth that some people feel, but development that we all feel and share in. So it's critical that as our work and as our country develops, we do things that make for us Jamaicans feeling that we have a part in and we can have a say in Jamaica.
All right, thanks, Gavin. Mr. Patterson, you started a political party,
yes,
and you registered the other day. And when I heard your presentation to the public, what I heard was I'm dissatisfied with the way things are. And part of my dissatisfaction is what I perceive to be high levels of corruption and the fact that our public officials have betrayed us as a people. How did you come to that conclusion? What was it that you saw that led you to conclude that something is wrong here, I need to do something about it?
Well, if you look at the evolution of Jamaica, we have always had a situation where the majority of Jamaicans are less fortunate, and a small minority of Jamaicans continue to have greater access to power, greater access to financial resources, and that speaks to something which is systemic. And I don't think we have ever turned the corner on the colonial model of master-slave economics, where, take for example, our current political model. Only those who have a lot of money have any chance of winning. That's a system problem. If you are going to avail yourself of the law, only those who have a lot of money are able to access the legal system in the ways that would protect them. So it tells me that we have a systemic problem. And I've watched this as a child growing up with a single mother, a poor single mother, and seeing how she struggled to make ends meet. And no matter what she does, if she doesn't have somebody in power that's going to look out for her and give her a break, then she's not going to make it. And that obtains for the vast majority of Jamaicans. Everything is about connection. It's about who you know, as opposed to having a system of objective laws that applies to every Jamaican equally. I know Gavin just said that the law says that we're equal. Well, what a law says and what actually obtains are two different things. So the law says that we're equal, but the practice of the law does not treat us equally. Okay. And what we want is a set of laws that are truly objective, and then when they're applied objectively, regardless of one's financial position.
Montel, I've talked to you. I'm asking, are we doing too much on this thing about corruption in Jamaica? Every democracy has corruption. You think Jamaicans are talking down our democracy? Is corruption in Jamaica any different from anywhere in the world?
Yes, it is different, because the recent CPI research showed where Jamaica ranks 70 out of 180 countries. And most recent times, it's, I think, 76. When we look at corruption, we speak about the issue of equity. Equality meaning that we are the same, equity meaning that we have the same opportunity availed to us to make the best and to produce the best for our society. We look at three things. 1, power. 2, economics. And 3, social. Power being, how do I consolidate power? Who am I in society? What part do I play? Secondly, economics. How much money am I able to amass? And with that money comes influence. Thirdly, social. Meaning that how do I look to society? Who am I to society? How do I appear to society? And when we think about all of that with a highly bureaucratic society, that really is not working in the best interest of everyone. We really have to think about replacing the system, 1, with a meritocratic system, and 2, to fix the issue of bureaucracy in order to create a level playing field. And there are other things which has to do with psychological as well, education and so on, which we can tie in order to create the results that we want to see.
All right, so you're giving me a challenge now. Gavin, normally when we talk about corruption and hence an anti-corruption strategy, we talk about institutions, legislation, we talk about a framework, an anti-corruption framework.
Institution building.
Institution building. But what you have, the dilemma that you gentlemen have put me in, is that and the gentleman who started the conversation, is that we are now talking about a more nebulous concept of equity, of the law treating people in different ways. How do we build systems of accountability around something we can't measure in the way that you are suggesting? Because that's why I ask, is there something wrong with our culture? And can we respond in the way democracies have responded? I'm going to ask, I see you jumping in, but let me ask Gavin first. Can we respond with institutions, legislation, and policy?
Yes, we can. And I think we can use our Governor General Allen's statement that we can use what is right with Jamaica to fix what is wrong. And the issue of corruption is one case in point. Most Jamaicans, in fact, 78% of Jamaicans say that they have never paid a bribe to do anything in Jamaica. And the incident has been going down over time. This is what came out of the Latin American Public Opinion polls. So most of us, even though we are of the opinion that things are bad in Jamaica, we can effectively say that it is not a norm for us to pay a bribe or for persons to demand this for us to get services. So there are good things going. Even more, institutions, it is proven that if institutions are working and that if we have trust that these institutions can work and will work all the time, there is less likelihood that we will pay a bribe. So for for the national integrity action, it's critical that we look at it this way, that we build the institutions that can last and can act as a check and a balance against personal feelings or personal movements that may change over time. If we have institutions that are there to work for us as a whole, then we can have this for our children. And it's critical, if I just may put in an international relationship. When we look at International Anti-Corruption Day was December 9th, and one thing that they looked at was a relationship between corruption and our global fight for climate justice. And it says that if we do not do something about corruption, then we do not have a world to inherit, because corruption is one of the issues that is institutionally taking away the resources and taking away our environment.
Joseph, when we talk about, Mr. Patterson, when we talk about corruption, typically we hear, let's just get rid of all of these politicians. This will fix it. It's the politicians that are problematic. What is the problem?
Sure. The problem of corruption in Jamaica is one of system design. If you were to look at a company situation, a company that has good internal controls have less incidents of theft and corruption. A company that has bad internal controls have more incidences of corruption and theft. And those companies tend to do very poorly and then go out of business. If you look at Jamaica as a business, how well have we done? Let's compare ourselves with a similar country. Singapore, in 1965, they got independence from Britain. We got it in 1962. We had a GDP per capita then of 550. Singapore had a GDP per capita of 550. Look at us today. Singapore has a GDP per capita of over 63,000 US per person. We have between 7,000 and 9,000 per person. Why is that? Singapore focused on ensuring that they had a zero tolerance for corruption, and they ensured that they had the rule of law that was enforced rigidly and without excuse, and nobody was exempted from that. As a result, they created a safe, clean, and orderly environment that any person in Singapore can achieve their maximum potential. They also invested in a high-quality education system that brought the standard of discussion and governance in the minds of Singaporeans to a level where politicians were kept in check. We in Jamaica, what have we done? We have created an environment where we have divided our people into two tribes, and they're fighting each other consistently. We have a low-quality education product, which means most Jamaicans cannot engage in the dialogue properly about good governance and what it means. And we end up with a productivity level that's very low and a crime level that's very high. Singapore has low crime. They also have high economic output, and they have very low corruption. They're, in fact, almost #1 in the world. We in Jamaica need to learn from them and, first of all, change our political system so that we curb corruption by having effective checks and balances.
Understood. Singapore paid a heavy price, though. And so, Montel, I don't know. We hear that often.
I'd love to hear the heavy price that they
We
paid.
cite Singapore all the time. I heard Orlando Patterson the other day talk about the fact that this issue of crime and violence and the disorderliness, it would appear, of democracies is particular to democracies, because of the nature of democracies. So is it then, from your critique, I'm hearing that what we are having is really a problem with democracy? Is it that we need a different kind of political system? I'm coming to you.
Yes, okay.
To bring about the kind of anti-corruption initiatives that will really see the Jamaican state growing in a way that will bring about the orderly society that we imagine?
The system in Jamaica is ethnocentric in that from the colonial period, we have really continued with the system of governance rather than changing that system and replacing that system with what works for us as a society. When we look at the formation of political parties, the formation of political parties were a reaction and a knee-jerk reaction to an issue that was present in society. We have not had that consensus as a society, that conversation as a society, to sit down and say, what is the path that we want to go as a society? What are the principles that underpin a good citizen within a society? And how do we plan to organize ourselves economically in order to get the best and reach to the standard of Singapore and others? Singapore came to Jamaica and they studied our system and they fixed their system. We now need to look. Then come to Jamaica and take it and bring it there and just use it same way, you know. You have to fix it according to the culture of the people. You have to understand culture, economics, social factors, and fix your system. Develop a hybrid if means be.
We have 1 minute left, so we have to wrap up. It was just getting sweet, but Gavin, go ahead.
And it's sweet, but I want to point out that our democracy works and there are systems that are there that can work. What we need to do is to strengthen them, and the best way to strengthen is for public participation, advocacy and activism. If the public participate and make our voices heard, if we get involved, if our members of parliament, if our councillors, if our leaders know that we are watching them, that we are involved, that we tell them what it is that we need done, that we in every way get involved, then our system of governance will look like us. If not, somebody else will fix it for them and themselves. But we want a system that works for us, and we have to get involved to get that.
There's no doubt for me that we need a new system and we need new leadership. We need to step back, as my friend here has said, and look at the system we have that we've inherited from our colonial masters, which has been continued to today, and say, is this right for Jamaica? I can assure you, it's not right for Jamaica. What Jamaica needs is a system built by Jamaicans for Jamaica to realize the aspirations of all Jamaicans.
There's a famous saying that you can't really expect a fish to operate as a land creature. Britain and all the systems that were put in place were good for Britain. A former Prime Minister said that if it's good for Britain, it's good for Jamaica. Well, I am saying it was good for Britain, and if Jamaica doesn't look into it, break it apart, and make it into their own, based on their economic, historic realities, then we aren't going to have it to work. So we must get it to work, so we must fix it.
Thank you, gentlemen, very much for what has been a very enlightening and insightful conversation. Thanks for your time. Please enjoy the rest of your holidays, or enjoy the holiday seasons as you're going to them. CVM Live will return right after this break.